Welcome into Inside the Race, post-Iowa edition. Ty Gibbs goes to victory lane. We have a full show ahead of you today, but let's jump right in. Kyle Petty's joining me in from motorsport.com. Bozi, people chop up my last name, so I'm not going to attempt yours. Give me the full name.
Bozi Tatarevic.
You see what I did? Kyle, you want to
give
it a shot?
No, I'm not. I'm from the South. I can't do that.
I'm telling you.
Do that.
I'm telling you. Okay, guys, Joe Gibbs Racing goes to victory lane this time. Ty Gibbs, the guy has been on fire at the short tracks. He won at Bristol earlier in the year. He was nearly the car to beat at North Wilkesboro, comes back, and he wins Iowa. How impressed were you from the driver of the 54?
Totally impressed. I've been impressed with him all year long. Let's don't just talk short tracks. Let's talk from the time we left Daytona. I've been impressed with his mental attitude, where he's shown up this year. He has shown up every week. He is the guy that has been the sleeper for me all year long, just finishing fourth, finishing sixth, finishing fifth, just knocking them out. You knew those wins were going to come. But once again, we get a setback early in the race, and he doesn't panic. He doesn't do anything crazy. He has that veteran mentality, and he just drives his way back to put themselves in position.
Yeah, a whole team effort, too. I know they had a hiccup with a bad pit stop. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but then great calls on top of the pit box, efficiency on pit road.
I think that's the big deal here is consistency from everybody. And recovering from errors like that is key. And his pit crew is elite. They've been top 5, top 6, top couple spots most of the year. And that's kind of but what's been the key for all of them, whether that's Tyler Allen on the top of the pit box, the engineers working back, at JGR, or the pit crew, is everybody knows what their limit is, but they're kind of hitting for that 3rd to 5th spot and not overdoing it.
Yeah, exactly. To me, and I'll say this, to me, what they do is reminiscent of what Kevin Harvick and Rodney Childress did a few years ago. They just blue collar you to death. Yeah. They just hit their marks. They do their stuff. It's a team effort, and they get those thirds. And they'll make a third out of a sixth, or they'll make a win out of a fifth, and something like that. That's the way this team has impressed me this year.
So what jumps off the page to me is Ty Gibbs is only 23 years old. And he's kind of had to grow up in front of us through some unbelievable circumstances, like losing his father the weekend he wins the O'Reilly Championship. His grandfather owns the race team. His mother runs the race team. Like, there's a lot of, I call it, you could probably identify to it, but there's a lot of noise around just driving the race car. Yet when I look at his season, it could have got off the rails right away. 23rd at Daytona, 37th at Atlanta. Then he goes on a streak of single digit finishes, 4th, 5th, 6th, so on and so forth. Again, Talladega and Texas. A couple issues outside the top 30, right? I think a more immature team, driver, group, those back-to-back runs can kind of derail you. This arguably might be the most consistent. I know there's been teams with more wins, but the most consistent season. I mean, it is dang near a level line.
Yeah, you're the stat guy.
Yeah,
it has been consistent.
Well, it has been consistent, and I think what they've done for themselves is they've built that consistency leading to this point and allowed themselves some opportunities now leading into the chase. Yeah. So if you have those consistent finishes where if I have a 30th place finish once or twice, I'm not going to fall back, you can get to these races now where you can take strategy risks.
Yes.
And that's kind of the big deal of being consistent early on.
And you look at the way he started the year. Mm-hmm. The way he started the year, if this was last year or the year before, they would have imploded, because it seems like that's what they did. I think, once again, that's a tribute to the guy on the screen here on the right, the guy holding the trophy, is he has shown up this year a mature 23-year-old, far more mature than what he was at his 22-year-old. And he's able to take that, compartmentalize it, and start a fresh 3rd race of the year, 4th race of the year, 5th race of the year. Has a bad race, come back fresh next week.
Not to mention that they're fast. They've led laps in all the 7 races this year, and they had to be fast because it was their teammate, Christopher Bell, that they were trying to outrun. Christopher Bell, to me, is a fascinating conversation. 7 second-place finishes. I don't know if I'm supposed to say it like, hey, 7 second-place finishes as a positive, or 7 second-place finishes as a negative. I good or bad?
Bad. I'm just going to say it, bad. I think we saw it with 50 laps to go. He had a shot, I felt like. With 35 laps to go, you guys said it on TV. He made a move, and his car didn't respond, and I think he knew the limits on his car with 35 laps to go. He made a couple of runs, but that's all he did. And I've seen, this is a Kyle thing, sorry, when's he going to pass a leader? That's my point. When's he going? He runs them down. We've seen him run them down in multiple races.
Okay, so on that, is that a because I have the same question.
Yes.
Is that Bell underperforming or Gibbs overperforming?
Bell underperforming.
Okay.
Okay. And I say that because he's gotten beaten by Blaney twice, Suarez once, and Heim once. Okay. So he's gotten beaten by his own teammates and by Toyotas. Don't get me wrong. But I think that's Bell underperforming. Go back and watch the last, when he makes a move with 15, 20 laps to go, and even you guys in the booth said he's going to have one more shot. He duplicated the shot he had before. He didn't try anything different. If you go back to the well, if you go to the well and it's dry, don't go back to that same move. It's not going to work, man. It doesn't work in the NBA. It doesn't work in the NFL. It's not going to work here. So I think that's Bell underperforming. And I hate to say that because I think he's an incredible race car driver. But how many times can Adam put him in a place to win races or get them in a place strategy-wise to win races, and you leave the win on the table?
I will tell you, I think for Adam Stevens and Christopher Bell, this is going to sound almost obnoxious. How they present those second-place finishes internally, I think is very important because, I've led teams into these races and momentum's real and energizing real, and they're running really, really well, right? So how do you, however you believe it is, how do you present those 7 seconds as, look, we're 6th in the standings. We're right in this thing. A few of those turns into wins and we could be a champion.
I've been on the other side of those conversations where I've been even in worse positions where you had a drought where you're not even finishing in the top, a handful of spots. And that's a big deal of like how your car chief, engineer, crew chief, whoever else comes to you and says, hey, we got some momentum now. We finished second. We were this close. We're going to try this thing next time and go versus, oh, we got all these seconds. Because nobody likes being second. And that's kind of where I go back to that. Is like we talk about Gibbs having consistency, and Bell obviously has consistency, but that consistency sometimes can get overshadowed if you don't have that win to basically wrap it all up.
34 guys would like to be second for the record, though.
Yeah, and listen,
one guy would be mad about it, 34 others would be. And I think that's, I laugh, but I would spin it glass half full.
Yeah, and it's got to be spun glass half full. Okay, you've got to spin it that way.
Yeah.
But listen, I'll take consistent third and fourth, and I'm happy. Consistent seconds, I'm not happy. I'm not, and you shouldn't be happy. He shouldn't be happy. Nobody should be happy being runner up that many times. Because the point is, when you're standing on pit wall, and you know it as a pit crew guy, I worked for my dad. When he got to second, we knew we could win the race. We were going to win the race. When Richard Petty got to second, by God, we're going to win a race. We're going to victory lane. When Christopher Bell gets to second, what's that crew thinking standing on the wall? Where are we going to end up? Are we going to be second again? Is it going to be number 8? Is it going to be number 9? So I think it's that trickle down where that attitude permeates the entire team. It's where are we going to be? You need that team to be able to go into war with you.
Kyle's cheating in my notes because that's the next place I want to go. One of the biggest stories for me out of Iowa was pit road. Yep. We saw a track that's racy. Track position mattered. Good cars could pass some. We saw Bubba Wallace drive through the field, but a lot of great runs were derailed on pit road. So I'm going to go to the big board. Let's start with the eventual race winner. Let's talk about exactly how they get behind. So I'm going to switch to this 54. So this 54 pit stop comes in. We're going to see the issue's going to be on the right rear. They jack it up, hang the right front. They're going to drop the jack, right rear not on. But I want to break this down exactly how this happens. These pit stops are now under 9 seconds. So the orchestration of the pit stop, to remind everybody, this guy right here, the jack man. So this man right here, his job is to jack the car, then hand the front tire. Now the decision then becomes very clearly, when he's done with that task, what does he do, right? Tires in. Now he's done job 1, boom. Now he has nothing in his hands. The question is, this guy right here has to get around the car. Does he have time to verify the work's done back here, right? I mean, is it really that simple?
It's a half second you're losing if you look both ways.
Half a second on now sub 9 second pit stops.
Correct.
So that's a big percentage of pit stops.
Everybody gets behind, and you've ruined the choreography too if you've practiced it the other way.
Great. So you're going to see that he's looking back. You think he's looking back because his head's, but he's looking back for the handle. He's not looking back in this direction. He has no interest what's going on. I mean, he has an interest, but he doesn't have the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Drops the jack. Let me clear my screen. Drops the jack. Boom. The issue is not the jack man, I believe. It's something happens back here. I can't really tell because there's too many people in the way, but it seems like
index. I think the tire, when it's a little slow there, but when the new one goes on, I don't think it's fully seated on the hub. You see it bounce off the fender right there?
Yeah.
So it's just like doing this, wobbling on the hub. The pins haven't fully seated.
Well, I have another example. So this is right side, Ty Gibbs. They recover by 3 two-tire pit stops. Let's start. They recover because it's the end of stage 1.
Yes.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter
It's
how
early
good
in
a
the
car
race.
you have.
Early
It's
in
the
the
end of
race.
stage 2, your day's over.
Yeah.
Right? So early in the issue. Another driver who had, where do we even start? Damage in practice, bad qualifying, lap down, free pass end of stage 1, stays out, gets track position. They had their own race going on, but they were in position until now. This, though, is a left side issue. Let's take a look. Clean on the right, comes around left, same situation, right? So the question then is, if it's a half a second penalty on the right, do you still think it's a half a second on the left?
It's probably in that same range because, you just think about the physical motion. I probably need some, scientist or some professional that knows about reflex timing and stuff, but I've done some of this vision training and stuff, and it gets into the milliseconds, but when you have to move your head physically back and forth to get a visual, it'll be 4 or 5 tenths at least, I think, if you're trying to check both before dropping.
So once again, same situation, right? Here is the jack man. He's already jacked the car. He now has to install the left rear tire. It seems to me that the issue on this specific one is the left front coming off.
Yep.
Like the other one was the tire going on. This seems like the tire changer you see has one hand on. It's hard to tell because he's behind the carrier. But right here, I would expect this tire to be coming out a little bit cleaner than it currently is.
Yeah, that's probably also a property of the jack itself. I know with the speed of how some of these jacks pump and the height they can go can be a little different depending on who builds them. And Hendrick builds their own, JGR builds their own, and there's a Pit Viper that does kind of the rest of the independents. And Pit Viper builds theirs to go taller, but these go faster. And that's going back to that, hey, maybe we can get a tenth or 2 out of here. But if you don't hit it just right on the stop and don't pump it just right, depending on how the bottom of that tire is, when it's pulling off, you'll touch the pavement and it'll come off, but
so I'm going to say, I thought it was on the pull. I think it's a double whammy, actually. So check it out. I think that the pull's a little slow. Watch the left front. Now I'm going to slow it right down, right? I think it's a little slow, like it's not high enough. And then the hang also drags. I don't know if he could have got it in there as quick as the jack was coming down. But the combination, now instead of a loose wheel, you don't even have a wheel in.
Yeah.
Thank goodness nobody's hands were there. But basically the left front, now they have to, if I play it forward, they have to stop, back up, and change what they do. So the $1 million question is, these are all a product of sub 9-second pit stops.
Yes.
100%, or at least they view. Should they operate at 100? Like, what's the right way to pit a car? At 100%?
As a pit crew guy in IMSA, I always want to go the fastest because I want to be the fastest, for my guys. I want them to get off pit lane first. And knowing a lot of these people that work on Cup pit lane and knowing how they practice and knowing how they train, and also going kind of back from my perspective, knowing the job market is, unless you're going 100%, you risk not being the guy to be on the house crew. And then you might end up on one of the backup crews or the Devo crews, and then, hey, I might be out of a job. So that's, I think the mindset of how pit crew athletes are recruited and how they're placed on the crews plays a big role in how quickly they go here. And all the coaches want to be at the top of the charts. And I probably don't help any of that, publishing some of this information, whether it's, for the NASCAR Substack.
Glad you're taking the credit.
Or for Bleacher Report, or for some of these other, outlets that deal this, that every week, I say, hey, these guys went really well, or these guys are struggling, or whatever else. And I've had some pit coaches mad at me, and I've had some other people really happy with me, depending on how they did that week. But I think the nature of how the whole thing is structured is 100% all the time is what you got to do, even if it might not be the optimal.
So my counter is this. I think you try to raise the ceiling so you don't have to operate on it. My job as a crew chief was to have the fastest car on the track so my driver could run 90% until it was time to go 100. Now, there's going to be a time, Kyle, where I need that last 10%. Buddy.
That's right.
And you have to do it maybe the last run. Maybe when you're Ty Gibbs holding off Christopher Bell.
That's right.
Like, you might stuff it in the fence. But I think.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's the next level of pit stops. They are doing a good job managing around the fuel. But a 4-tire pit stop, I feel like, it's not this easy because they're humans.
No.
But it was a video game. I'd be like, I want to dial this back about 5 clicks.
Yes. No. But so I used to have I had a football coach in high school, and he used to have a great saying. There's no magic switch. You got to practice like you play. You got to give it 100% in practice because you got to give it 100%. You're not going to be able to give 80% in practice and bump it up. On the other side of that coin is, if you can play 100%, you can back it back some.
Yeah,
you can. What I like about cup racing, about sports in general, is when we see somebody who's given 100%, take it to another level. They grab another gear. They just pick it up, okay? They can play at 100%. These guys can pit at 100%. When they're going for the win, take it to another level. Pick it up a little bit more. We've seen Joey Logano. We've seen their crew. We see crew chiefs make those calls.
Yeah.
They just make a call that's bigger than what the situation is. And I think, so for me, it's not so much backing it down a little bit. It's finding that consistency, being that fast, being able to just duplicate, put it out there. But then when it comes time for the win and it comes time for those important moments, can you pick it up? Can you take it to the next level? If you can't take it to the next level, then I'm moving you to a travel team, and you're going to have to do it on somebody else's team. But that's when you know where you've got the greatness in a pit crew, when they can go to a different place.
I asked a lot of crew chiefs and some pit coaches, but more crew chiefs, they're all very important. Who's the quarterback? Who's the franchise player? And every single team told me the Jackman. Every team has said what once was the tire changers at 5 lug nuts, specifically the rear tire changer, because he chased the car back in, say, the 90s into the 2000s. We went from 3 to 2 tire, changers.
Yeah.
And then we went from 2 tire carriers down to 1. And now that responsibility has fallen to the Jackman. So to every team I asked, they were like, look, you have to have them all. They all have to be good. But the Jackman is absolutely the franchise player that sets the tone, the speed of the pit stops.
The tire changers, because of the spec wheel guns, are tapped out now. Like, if you have an elite tire changer, I would say 30 of the guys that, if you put any of them on any car, will probably be roughly in the same range, but the Jackman really sets you apart. And one example that I can think of specifically, going back to Christopher Bell, is Darrell Edwards, the Jackman on the 20. He's a veteran Daytona 500 champion. He's done a lot, but his ability to move across the front of the car is unmatched. And people study him, people try to replicate him, but it's not possible. And even when they had injuries, Blake Houston, the front changer, got injured a few weeks ago. Iowa was actually his first race back. They slotted in a guy from the 38 to fill in on the front. They had a rough single race, but then the next few races, because Darrell is so fast and their people are trained so well, that they just went right back up to charts. And that's why they've battled for the top position in the rankings all year. And it's just that Jackman position is so key, which is why it's so competitive and why it pays so well now compared to some of the other positions.
I want to play a little game. Where they finished and how they got there. It's going to sound complicated, and there's a lot to it. And once again, there's a lot going on. So just stick with me. What I really just want to point out is the variety. So this is basically, Bozi, I'm going to give you credit. This is a graphic you create. You have pit stops in there, runs in there. There's color everywhere. But everyone seeing this graphic can see how it's very different. Let's start with the beginning, where it's all the same. Everybody runs 73 laps. So if everybody pit at the same time, it would just be a chunk, right? Everybody runs 73, everybody runs 19, and then the world falls apart, and everybody does something different. Ty Gibbs, bad stop right here, which then forces them to do 2 tires, 3 2-tire stops. I mean, that's basically what it took for him. So that's how that guy won the race. Christopher Bell, he does 4, 2, and a couple of 4s. Ryan Blaney, man, it's all over the board. I only say this because I'm going to go to the next page. Variety everywhere. I mean, look at A.J. Allmendinger. What a run out of Kaulig Racing. But he was Mr. 4-tire all day, man. If you're going to change tires, give me 4 tires. I like this sort of race. Kyle, as a consumer, just as a consumer, as a fan at home watching, do you enjoy this? And it's okay to say, man, no, it's chaos. It's not fun to watch.
Okay, so I'll answer that question. I am not, and I know you guys are, so I apologize. I am not a huge fan of strategy races.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's okay if fans aren't. I'm okay with that.
To me, because to me, it's like watching a pitcher's duel in baseball. The guy, let's go to the bullpen, and I want to see a home run derby. That's what I saw here. It's more of this, because I've got guys up front, now they're at the back. Now I've got guys up front, now I'm switching up my players. And as you see Blaney up front, you see Gibbs up front, you see Bale up front. I get a different view all day. I get a different race. I get a different view. I see people coming from the back, moving to the front. I like when we have a racetrack and we have a strategy from the crew chiefs that give us this mix.
It was chaos, to be honest. It was so captivating at the front that, like, Josh Berry snuck in the fourth. I mean, I feel like I didn't do him the justice he deserved from the booth, because I looked up and I'm like, holy cow, he's fourth. Then he's not on here because he's not in the top 10, but let me throw Chris Buescher on here. Chris Buescher was running 22nd, stretched fuel all the way to the finish, ran 13th. So there was a million different ways to kind of chop up this race. It was chaos. The results, though, look like this. Denny Hamlin continues to lead. Ty Gibbs +2 with the win. We see the value of the win. Reddick, we didn't even talk about Reddick. Corner 1, lap 1. Even his interview, first of all, I'm going to hat tip to Tyler Reddick. He did the interview like a professional race car driver, answered all the questions. But I feel like he was like not even there. Like his mind was going a million miles an hour. Like he couldn't believe that just happened. And I feel he was emotionally crushed that he wrecked Eric Jones, went over and apologized. You must have at some point in your career had a moment like that.
Oh, for sure, for sure. You make a bonehead move, or you have an accident that takes out other people. That's miserable for you, because you're riding in the ambulance, you're in the hospital with them. You know what I mean? You're in the infield care center with them. It's miserable because everybody's pointing at you. It's your fault. I had that numerous times. I'll go ahead and say that. You know what I mean? So that's okay. But the thing is, I think it was disbelief, because it's like, hey, 5 minutes ago, I just put my helmet on. And now I'm doing an interview. And I'm Tyler Reddick. I had my name engraved on the championship trophy 3 races into this season. Let's go back to the very beginning. And oh, how the mighty have fallen. And that is a perfect example of how the Cup season can humble you as a driver. Wow. He is the perfect example that you've got to give it 100%. You've got to be on top of your game week in and week out to get to the end and be that champion.
I got some negatives to get to. Gibbs had some brake issues. I want to talk about that. HMS had some struggles. We're going to talk about that. But before we get to the negatives, let's go to the positive. We're going to bring you our weekend winners presented by Powerball Bozi. I know you're new to the set. We do this each and every week. It can be anybody in the field. Is there a name in the running order, a guy who had a great, or an organization or a person that you think was a winner at Iowa?
I think people might not expect this, but I'm going to pick William Byron. Okay. I think, going back to your Barry conversation, I think Byron has had a quiet ascension over the last few races. They were kind of in a rut for a little bit. And a lot of that, I think, is that momentum we talked about and how you deal with your group. And his pit crew has been on a roll. They were outside of the top 10 in the rankings to start the year. They made some changes. They've done some different things in practice, shifted some people around, and they've gone up and up and up. And for what I heard this morning, they completed the fastest pit stop in Hendrick history at Iowa.
Wow.
And, Byron, finished decently, like it wasn't an on-fire day, but those are the types of things he needs to get into that top 5 or 6, which is kind of where you want to be if you want to challenge for the championship.
All right, so to your point, his day, 14th in stage 1, 7th in stage 2, 9th overall. Kyle Petty, your weekend winner.
Connor Zillage. First time he's not been the first interview from the infield care center. It feels like he's my winner. Yeah. He put together a whole race. Not flashy, not anything special, but did what he needed to do. Qualified well. His weekend started during qualifying, qualified well, and finished. Closed it off. Tip of the hat to Connor Zillage.
A+ choice, because I believe, take the road courses out because he's a natural talent at the road courses. 9th in stage 1, 10th in stage 2, 11th in the race. Nobody talked about him. Nobody really saw him. Didn't hit anything. When I used to say all the time, you have to get 100 starts. You need 40 or 50 of those in those 100 to then move to 5th, move to 1st. I thought that was good. I got a crazy one, and I'm going to say it now because it could be the actual winner this weekend. How about the 3 of Austin Dillon?
Wow.
It's been an unbelievable year at RCR. Kyle Busch passing and a lot of up and down. I can't imagine what it's like to work in that organization and what they've had to overcome this year. But to go to a short track, 5th in stage 1, 12th in stage 2, 10th overall, and we're heading to Richmond, a.k.a. Austin Dillon's favorite racetrack, because it seems like he's always in position there. And there you have it. Weekend winners brought to you by Powerball. Well, if those are the winners, and I know William Byron was one of them, and he was the winner perhaps out of the Hendrick organization, the misses continue. Byron did get him their first top 10. in a few weeks, which is shocking to say. But the 5 gets caught up in an accident. The 48 was in the accident that the 5 kind of was caught up in. What do we make? The 9 had a good day going, had a bad pit stop. What do you make of HMS?
I don't know what to make of it. I honestly don't know what to make of it. As we look at them, there's been moments during the season. I think we started the season, and I didn't think the Chevys were where they needed to be. So I gave them a little bit of a pass the first part of the year because new car, new body, new stuff. But then there were flashes. There were moments where you thought, okay, they're getting it. And then they show up, and they're nowhere to be seen. So I honestly don't know what. Now, you work there. This is not going to last long. Okay, we both know that. We both know. So we're talking about them in this vein, and this is one of the few times we will. But they just seem to be, in a crazy way, imploding on each other. You know what I mean? I don't know what their meetings are like on the Mondays or Tuesdays or whatever. But it's like they're trying stuff, and I've seen so many guys with so many teams through the years who were on top, and then they begin to fall a little bit, and they start just, what do I do? There's a magic bullet. Except there's no magic bullet.
Yeah.
You know that. You just got to get back to the basics and make things happen. The pit stop for the 24 is the basics. That's the basics. Build back from that, and they will.
I think even the 9 crew, they had a mistake yesterday, but they've also been a top crew. I think they have all the
rankings.
Pieces.
They're like top 3 in the rankings.
Always.
I agree.
They have the pieces there. I think what it goes back to is what Steve has mentioned of, if you can run at 90% and be able to win a race, you'll have an easier day.
Yeah.
But Hendrick is not able to do that because of maybe car or whatever, aero, whatever else it is. And that's, I think, what you've mentioned many times, is just they're just pushing the edge every
Let's put
race.
the standings up. This tells me this is it. If we come right here and let me put the standings up, I'm going to tell you what I think the issue is, and it's what you just said. Here are the Hendrick cars currently: 7th, 10th, and 11th. I believe. Look who's in front of those cars. This is a blanket statement. Hamlin, faster. Gibbs, faster. Blaney, faster. Reddick, faster. Briscoe, faster. To your point, to both of your points, this will not last forever at Hendrick Motorsports. Yeah. What's hurting at Hendrick Motorsports right now is the same reason they are who they are, and that is the expectation. They are not upcoming Spire. They are not building up legacy. They are not Trackhouse from a few years ago that we should be impressed that they're running over where we expect them. We expect Hendrick Motorsports to be here, 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 and here. And that is a burden that organization has to live with because they've earned it. Yeah, it's almost a compliment. But I believe, Bozi, you hit it right on the head. When I watch the Hendrick teams operate, everyone is trying too hard. The drivers are trying to take okay cars and make them great. The crew chiefs are trying to make okay cars great. The pit crews are trying to make okay cars great. I know the effort's happening at the shop to make okay cars great, but the hardest thing to do in sports, and I am the worst at it, is to be patient.
Yeah.
And you have to allow the speed to come to you, because I like that William Byron was your weekend winner, and here's why I say that. He finished 9th with what I believe was a 9th place car.
Yeah.
Maybe a 12th place car. Right. I'd have to look into the metrics or ask Rudy Fugle his opinion, but I feel like I hate that the 9 had their pit stop issue, because I think Chase and Allen were going to way outrun the raw speed in that 9 car.
Yeah.
We'll never know about the 5 to Kyle Larson's defense. I'm not sure if, like whenever it's like, oh, well, he was 3 wide and I'm like, yeah, but that's kind of Kyle Larson.
Yeah.
That didn't look like a Kyle Larson mistake. And poor William Byron was doing nothing. He was just cruising 3 wide on top and got run into the fence. So I'm not sure this week specifically.
Yeah.
I think they created their own mistakes. I don't. I feel like they were just victims of some issues here. But over the course of the year, how about this? Heading into Iowa, they had 12 DNFs for accidents.
That's wild.
That number's only gone up with the issue with Alex Bowman, right? So it'll be at 13 now. They had 4 or 5 a year ago. Another one I'll give you. Heading into Iowa, Kyle Larson led the second most laps of the entire series. He had only completed the 29th most.
Wow.
I mean, that's
crazy.
And that's I guess that's my point, is it's too hard to be that fast.
Yeah.
They just need to get it a little bit easier.
Yeah, and listen, Hendrick Motorsports, Rick, he's always had this problem. It was when Jeff Gordon it's because we're comparing Jeff Gordon to Jeff Gordon. When Jimmy Johnson went flat, we were comparing Jimmy Johnson to Jimmy Johnson. So we're comparing Hendrick to Hendrick. And there's a million other teams out here, or every team out here would be taking what they're doing right now and saying, hey, it's okay. We'll come through this. Sometimes, and you know it as a crew chief, I know it as a driver, you got to slow down to go fast. You got to take a step back, take a breath, and find that zone. They're just not in their zone right now. They're trying to move their zone where they need to be playing in their zone. And that was a perfect example when you talk about William Byron. They had an 8th or 9th place car. They finished 8th or 9th. Let's go to the house. Fastest pit stop, let's move on. Let's build from there. You've got to play in your zone, and you've got to get comfortable in that zone and quit trying to take cars that are 7th, 8th, 9th and do stuff to them to run with what the Gibbs cars are or what the Penske cars are right now.
Look, I don't think it's a secret. Ty Gibbs wins in a Toyota, Bell second in a Toyota,
Yep.
Blaney third in a Ford, Josh Berry fourth in a Ford, Hamlin in a Toyota fifth, Briscoe in a Toyota sixth. Welcome to the Chevy camp. Chastain, Allmendinger, Byron, Dillon, Zilich, 7th through 11th, all bow ties. Trackhouse, Colleague, Hendrick, RCR. 4 Chevys, 4 organizations.
Yeah.
What's consistent? And I'm not blaming the manufacturer.
No.
Racing's hard.
Yeah. That's
Racing's really hard. And right now, Toyota, I think, has the most raw speed. I think Chevrolet does not. You said they're not going to be there forever. They're going to get it figured out. But I think the key really at this point is to kind of try to manage and try to understand. Iowa was a lot of fun. There was a lot to go along. We covered HMS. We covered pit stops. I know you came prepared. You always do. Was there something I didn't get to from Iowa that you think needs to be discussed?
No, I think we covered the big topics. There's probably a lot of nitty-gritty stuff we can get into, but people might doze off if we start talking about the 23rd pit stop of the race.
Yeah, I didn't really get a hot take from you. You seem to be pretty relaxed today.
No, listen, I'm really relaxed. I thought it was a good race. I enjoyed the race. I enjoyed the strategy. I enjoyed the different leaders up front. I enjoyed that we actually had people spin out and we had some cautions that weren't just stage-ending cautions. I enjoyed that we didn't have to implement the new rule at the end of a stage because we had a caution that they announced this week. So, but it was just a good, solid race. And we saw the fastest cars run up front and the fastest cars contend for the win.
You know what we didn't talk about was this. So this is my little perch. I'm right here. That.
Oh, yeah.
It felt like Wilkesboro. Felt like Pocono. It felt like Michigan. I'm thankful that the race was entertaining for most, I believe. I haven't heard a lot of complaining about the race. The market, I've only been to Iowa now 3 times. I had never gone there before. It just feels good. It just feels like it's supposed to be. Like, forget whether it's a race or not. I go to a lot of sporting events. I want to go where people want to be. I roll into a Fenway Park, man. I want to see my fellow Red Sox fans. I want to be there. If I'm going to the Rolex, I want to walk through the infield at Daytona and see some guys having a beer next to the bonfire, having a blast. They were camping early. They were there all day. The weather was amazing. Like, it was just, we don't have to talk about it. It was just what it's supposed to feel like to be at a race.
We have talked about, we talked about it when we went to San Diego, the visual of the place on TV. The visual of this place on USA, when they would sweep across the signage out in the cornfield, when they would sweep across that with the drone out over to the racetrack. Phenomenal. Freaking phenomenal.
Yeah, if you build it, they will come. And nobody had a better time at Iowa than Ty Gibbs and his crew chief, Tyler Allen, who joins me next. Joined by the winning crew chief, Tyler Allen, crew chief for Ty Gibbs. 2nd win of the year. Tyler, has to feel good. I see you're already in the shop, so back to work already.
Yeah. It's funny how little time you have to celebrate. We got Richmond coming up, so there's plenty to do, and really excited for the win yesterday. Ty did a great job. Team did a great job. It was really cool.
You know, Tyler, I'm looking forward to this conversation because I do have some questions about Iowa. But to be honest, you and I, we've conversed in the garage, but we don't have a long-standing relationship. We didn't really race against one another. So I think, much like the fans, I'm interested in your background a little bit. But let's start with Iowa. You were great at North Wilkesboro. I had to give you a lot of kind of momentum heading into Iowa. Everything looked great in practice, and the kind of wheels literally came off. Stop 1, lap 74, a bad first pit stop gives up track position. What's the mindset where that's kind of unfolding in front of you after you kind of had the hiccup speeding at Wilkesboro? Was there a little like shock value of, man, we've lost track position again?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's always tough when these things happen. I feel like you're on the verge of disaster with as quick as these pit stops are now with the single lug. And, I tell Ty all the time, like, this is going to happen. It happens to everybody on pit road at some point. We were lucky enough for it to happen in the first stage. And, really just set our minds to moving forward and getting in position for the final stage.
So I'm going to give credit to driver and crew chief. First of all, your 23-year-old driver, I think, is more mature than he's ever been in his career. He was very calm on the radio. He just went back to work. But maybe what got overshadowed in the chaos of Iowa is you took 2 tires at lap 93, 2 tires again at lap 143, put some fresh lefts on at 214, and then 2 tires again. So 3 2-tire stops to get yourself back into the game. Was it just purely you knew you had car enough and you had to be aggressive?
Yeah, I mean, in practice, looking at the wears, I mean, it was very minimal. And even we had that caution come out in the middle of practice after 30 or 40 laps on tires, made no changes, went out and ran just as fast as we were running. So it was clear that rights were going to be an option all day. That was a little longer than I wanted to go on rights in stage 2, but at that point we needed some track position and the car speed was there, and Ty did a really good job getting us back in position for the final stage.
All right, so don't give up Joe Gibbs Racing secrets, but I have to understand the communication. You're closing in on a green flag pit stop. If I'm racing you and we're not teammates, I'm holding my cards right on my I'm not telling you when I'm coming. I'm not telling you how many tires I'm changing. I'm keeping that. How does it work internally? I know you guys communicate, but is there, like, are you still communicating when you're racing each other, or do you just privately go quiet until you get the last pit stop? How does it work internally when the car you're racing is your teammate, the 20 of Bell?
Yeah, it's really situational, and there aren't any like internal rules about how we communicate, but we interestingly did communicate early in that stage, kind of like, what are you thinking? The 12 was strong. So we were both sort of plotting against how we were going to optimize our finishes. And then things got quiet there about the pit cycle. But obviously, I spent 7 years working with Adam. I had flipped over and I was scanning him. And I heard him call Bell in and 4 tires, and we were honestly leaning 2 tires. Like, that was kind of our primary plan going into it. So just to make sure he didn't short pit us, I pit on the same lap and we put on rights. And I mean, I can't lie, I was nervous. As close as Bell was with 4 tires, it was going to be a mountain to climb, and Ty did a great job executing.
So you're literally communicating, and then the chat just goes silent, and then you're on your own. Rarely is being second an advantage, if ever. But the one time I know it's a clear advantage is when it comes to calling the race, right? You can either come the lap before that guy, you can hear what they decide, and you can overcome them. I wasn't sure if you were going to know ahead of time because you had to pit before him on pit road, right? I have that earlier. You were closer to turn 4 than he was.
That's right.
So I didn't know if you could hear if he was going to do 4 or not with the timing of pit road.
Yep, I did hear the call. It was down the backstretch. It was pretty late. Hirschman did a great job getting the driver ready, and Ty executed. So it was really good.
Man, it's I love those. I tell everyone, I always ask, what do you miss the most? That's it. It's actually not the winning. It's that adrenaline kind of blood pumping moment where this is the intersection of success or failure in today's race, is if this call works or doesn't work.
Yeah, and it's funny because you get all the guys in the shop, great call, great call, great call. It just as easily, he could have passed us in 15 laps and it was the wrong call. It's so situational, but in the moment you have to make those decisions, and we chose control over tires, and we were able to hold them off. So
how lonely is it when you press the button? So I tell all this. We got war rooms, we have engineers, but one guy has to press the button and say 2 tires, right? And that's you. It's going to be your voice on the radio. And when I talk about it in the booth, or Bob Pockers talks about it on Twitter, or Jeff Gluck on his podcast, or even, Denny Hamlin on his, they're going to be talking your name, Tyler Allen. Do you ever feel that, like, I know we decided, but you're the head coach, you're going to have to press the button?
Yeah, there's definitely that feeling. It's interesting though, because we are having all those discussions. There's a ton of people working on this. It's not just one person making the decision, and it's really important to exude confidence to the driver when we make a decision. I think Ty appreciates that. There's a lot of confidence in all of the guys, all of the decision making. Just a lot of confidence right now, and I think that bodes well for the playoffs.
Well, let's look ahead. Let's talk about your team. So I've always enjoyed my time around Ty. I think he's a great star, upcoming star in the sport, but there's no secret, right? His last name's on the building. His grandfather owns the organization. His mother is a huge member in the upper executive management level of Joe Gibbs Racing. But his interview, I thought, told me something about the organization, right? He talked about how kind of locked in you guys were. As a guy that's so famous, he's very close guarded, right? He's family and friends and team. He's not kind of out there on social media a whole lot. What has it been like in the last couple of years for this 54 team, and especially now that you have a couple wins?
Yeah, there's just a lot of confidence. And honestly, coming in 2025, I knew it was a big project and that this stuff doesn't just happen overnight. And 2025 was a struggle, but over the off season, we kind of huddled up and said, we're going to make this our deal. And Ty made a point. He wants to have fun racing these cars. And we weren't having fun in 2025. and he's done such a good job. And obviously results help. Winning makes everybody we're having fun doing this. But I think we've built that confidence. We're finally working off our own notebook. We're in tune with Ty's numbering system and his balance and what he needs in a race car. And I think the engineers have done a great job of unloading really close and everyone on the shop floor building really fast race cars. The Toyotas are amazing right now.
It's funny because I think like the first thing about a driver crew chief pairing is to learn what language you're communicating, right? Some guys use numbers, some guys use other kind of explainers. And then when that relationship goes from language to then just the tone, right? Now I know the words he's using, but I can also hear how he's telling me. And that also affects a little bit of what I'm doing. That's when that kind of driver crew chief relationship seems to take the next step. And that's what I see with you guys is that, and it's not actually in the wins. I learned as much about your group in North Wilkesboro as I did about the win at Iowa, because he made the mistake on pit road. You guys had one. Like how you guys deal through adversity to me is a more telling representation of where the team stands.
Yeah, and previously that pit stop would have ended our day. But I think we all have the confidence, like, okay, it happened. Pit crew doesn't need to panic. We still got a bunch of pit stops we got to make today. And Ty's going to be looking out the windshield and making progress, and we're going to make pit calls that are aggressive to get our track position back. And there we are, fourth at the stage 2 break, and we're back in it. So just a lot of confidence and really proud of the group.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you. That's not going to put you on the spot. But when it happened in the race, I was like, I wonder if it helps if you have a family member on the pit crew. Kind of like racing your brother, right? Like, is it better or worse when you have a family member on the pit crew? There's a lot to entangle those. So look, you're up the points. You're looking great. There's 2 more short tracks. I mean, you got to be sitting on cloud 9. Look ahead. How excited are you to go to Richmond? Give me your view of Richmond. Handicap it for the fans.
Yeah, really excited for Richmond and Loudon coming up. Richmond was a struggle racetrack for Ty previously in the Cup Series. But last year, man, he turned over a new leaf, saving tires. Love calling this race because of all the fall off and getting to, 1 stop, 2 stop. What are we going to do? It's a fun race to call. So really looking forward to it. And then obviously this weekend, I mean, honestly, all our short tracks have been really sporty, so we're looking forward to it.
What don't we know about the chase? What have you learned over the first 20-something weeks that you feel you're more prepared now to run 10 races for a championship with this point system, with stage points, with the 20-point bonus? Like, what is something you've learned that you thought you knew in February that's different here in August?
Yeah, this points format has changed everything for me. It was all about the win. Have to win. And really now it's about being consistent. We've scored a ton of stage points this year, and that's what's put us in this position to be competing for a championship. And I think that's what the 10 races is going to be about. I think that one race pressure is a little bit relieved, and just You need to execute today and execute all 10, and you'll be in competition for the championship.
Is the biggest competition in your building? It's either you're building a 2311 by the numbers, but does it feel that way? I mean, I can answer the question by the numbers. The numbers would say that your building or 2311 seems to have the hot hand. I would definitely not rule Blaney out because that guy is fast everywhere we go, regardless of what car he's sitting in.
Agree.
Is that how you see it inside those four walls?
Yeah. I think we're competing with our teammates for the championship. Obviously, Denny, the veteran of the group, he's gonna be tough. But I think we have the speed and the cars to be able to compete with him, and a bad race or two can change everything. And I mean, we were clawing for third place in points, and we came out this weekend second. So, as tight as the points will be when they reset, it's going to be a race.
Yeah, it's shocking to me, the movement. I'll be honest. I think that's the thing I've learned. I was ready to give the trophy to Reddick, and then I was ready to give the trophy to Denny, and then Blaney's had this hot run. What I've learned is that we need to be very careful to assign a champion at race 3 of the chase, because I think 70 days and 10 races are as longer than maybe I even remember it from a couple decades ago.
Absolutely. I do think it's really exciting, though. I think it's going to reward the most consistent team, and we're looking forward to it.
You're going to die there. I'm not going to let you choke in your office, man. You got meetings to go to. You got Richmond to prep. Tyler, I appreciate you taking the time. Look, unbelievable car. It showed up in practice. But you've battled through, right? You had a little bit of trouble. Your driver did a great job, but I don't want the fan to overlook the call. You had to make 3 different 2-tire calls, the final one being the move to jump in front of Bell, and then your driver held it off. It was an impressive win. Second of your career. You're going to have to clean off a few more of those counters behind you if you're going to keep all your trophies in your office, because you're going to fill it up. All right, man. Appreciate it. Tyler Allen, crew chief for Ty Gibbs, off the big win at Iowa. Thanks again to Tyler Allen, crew chief for Ty Gibbs, the winner of the race this weekend. Well, from one crew chief to another, we bring in our crew chief friend, Todd Gordon. Appreciate you joining us. Bozi has been here. Him and Kyle have broke down most of it, but I want to give you the opportunity to talk about this young driver, the 54, and his crew chief doing a heck of a job this year.
I love the pairing here. I feel like the chemistry between the two of them is working well. I like the fact that we got out at Sonoma, and Ty was frustrated with Tyler over how they ran the race, although I think Tyler called the right race. That's a whole nother side. But we see that Tyler got to be a little aggressive, actually made the right call, put 2 tires on at the end, jumped his teammate, put himself out front, and let Ty Gibbs actually put on a really good showing of his talent of playing defense.
All right, well, let's set the stage then. You mentioned the final pit stop. Bozi, you and I kind of went through the strategies of everyone in the top 10, but let's take a little bit more focused look on the top 3. Let me set the stage. We're running under green, about a lap 280, 285, before anyone pits. You have Christopher Bell, the eventual second place finisher, leading the race by a little over 2 seconds over Ty Gibbs, by about 3 seconds over Ryan Blaney. Blaney, the first to stop, takes 4 tires. Let's see, in about 9 laps later, not quite, 6 laps later, Gibbs and Bell come to pit road. Gibbs takes 2, jumping over Bell.
Yeah, and I feel like if you look at this, the right call was 2 tires. And obviously that won the race for Tyler Allen and Ty Gibbs. I feel like this scenario and this kind of, Bozi and I talked a little bit about this, but I feel like this all ties back. Adam Stevens responded to what Jonathan Hassler did. Jonathan Hassler took 4 tires. So Adam took 4 to play defense against Blaney, who was really good earlier in the day. Jonathan Hassler had to take 4 because he took 2 when everybody else took 4 much earlier in the race and got him off tire sequence. He was going to have to run lefts an enormous long time, so he put 4 on. I think that 4-tire call by Hassler is what drove Adam Stevens to put 4 on, and that allowed Tyler Allen to make the 2-tire and jump him.
Bozi, what I love about your graphic here is we got to focus so much about the last choice of these teams. But what you do, and help the fan who hasn't seen this before, walk us through. So starting race, the race begins at the left. And I'm going to start to put some common lines. They all run 73 laps, so there's a line right here where they all take 4 tires together.
Yep. That's the stint. And then the blue color we see means they took 4 tires for that stint. The orange color means they took 2.
So where we see blue is the car's on 4 tires. So to Todd's point, Ty Gibbs, he put 4 tires on in this situation right here, which allowed this 2-tire run to be successful because the left sides were a little bit fresher.
Yes.
Interestingly enough, to your point, the 20, you feel then, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Todd, but you feel that because he had 4 tires on, that left the opportunity.
I think that should have been a 2-tire call.
Okay.
But now if you'll go back, if we go to the Blaney line here.
Yeah, these guys are inversed.
But
right?
Blaney's on 2 on that 4-tire call for them because he took 4 at 143.
Watch this. I got all kinds of things. There's 4. Oh, look at.
So, yeah, 2, but he took 4 there, yeah.
That's the call, I think, that dictated the strategy of both the 12 and the 20.
So,
because at that 4-tire stop, he lost track position and didn't get it back. So then Jonathan had to do a 2-tire stop to get himself back in contention.
All right, here you go. This is my idea. This is how I look at it because this is how my brain works. This is a scary place to go. We're all starting a road trip.
Yeah.
We're all leaving Charlotte. We're all driving to Daytona Beach. We're going to figure out how many times we have to stop. We all run the same distance. The decision pretty easy. We're all going to take 4 tires. What makes it complicated is the next run's short. It's only 19. If this run right here is 140 lap, man, we all do the same thing again.
Exactly.
Now it's 19, 19, and 19. So look, what does everybody do? The same thing. 2 tires, 2 tires, 2 tires. Still no deviation.
So what I love is at 143, you've got all 3 different calls.
Correct. So that's the difference. My point is, see if I can draw, talk, and walk. This could be nearly impossible. So we have the same, the same, the same. Now I'm going to put a line here. Actually, I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to put an arrow right here. This is where you're talking. Put 2 of them. So there's a caution period in this area. 2 tires, no pit stop, 4 tires. This moment right here, this lap 143, was the intersection for the top 3 finishers. That is where they deviated from the plan.
That's where the strategy went different directions at this point. And the one that kind of is intriguing to me is that Christopher Bell stayed out at that point and drove off to a multi-second lead.
I was killing him.
Yeah.
So to me, as his crew chief, I'm saying tires don't matter. Track position does. I am not going to take this last call and let my teammate jump me.
Now, we have to also, we think we should put some more numbers up here and confuse everybody even more. But we could talk running position as well.
Sure.
Because the reason he comes right here is because this bad stop here, he was in the back.
27.8
so his decision
seconds, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. 27-second stop, right? So running position is what's also changing this situation as well, which is much like my road trip. You know what he's doing? He's behind 5 tractor trailers. He's like, I'm going to stop and get a cup of coffee because this is not working. I'm not going anywhere. I have to get tires, so I come and get 2 tires, try to get an advantage.
And I think likewise down there, Jonathan Hassler, he's up there, but he's lost a little bit of his advantage on 2 tires. Bubba Wallace has actually challenged him in this run. And so I think Jonathan at that point's thinking, our car has been so good. Everybody's talked about how good we've been this weekend. I know we were that good in stage 1. I'm going to put 4 tires back on it and drive back to the front. Well, it just didn't happen.
I'm going to tell you that right there was a major issue for the 12 because when they put 4 tires on and we had people stay out and take 2, they lost control of the race. And then the car was loose out of the racetrack, couldn't go.
And that's why Hassler had to come back and do 2 tires to get his track position back on the next stop.
Right, because, if he, the other reason to make it even more complicated on the road trip, the other line I'll put right here is everybody pits there because it's a fuel window. It's like a window of time. You can't stay out because you don't know if the cautions are coming and you can have a little bit of trouble. But this is a great way to try to, when you break it down to only 3 cars, this is the road trip of the 3 cars.
Yeah, and I really feel like that road trip, as you talked about, it separated there at that opportunity for Christopher Bell to stay out, get the track position there. They got to see where their car went. Hassler put 4 tires on, kind of cycled himself backwards. Ty Gibbs was in recovery mode from that early stop and did a really good job driving forward.
Wait till you see this thing from Richmond. It's going to have less colors. It's going to be green flag. It's going to be totally...
I can tell you that, yeah, it will not have much orange on it at all.
There'd be none. It'd be green. It'd be blue, blue, blue.
If it's orange, it's because it was a caution within the last 10 laps and somebody tried to cycle forward.
That's why I said earlier I'm a fan of this new stage break rule, because maybe it'll create a little more excitement for some of these other races.
Yeah, we haven't got your thought. Let's talk about the stage break rule. You know, now if a caution comes in the final 10, first of all, I'll jump right on the grenade to start. I love it. I think it's free. I don't think it makes a big difference. It's a better viewing for the drivers, or excuse me, for the fans.
Here's the other piece that I like to it. Now there's more urgency.
Yes.
Now instead of saying I've got 14 laps to run the leader down and pass him, I may only have 4.
It's like rain's coming.
Yeah.
Like, I've got to get there. Like, I can't just wait and let this happen at 2 to go. That target for the driver has moved. It's a moving window now. So I think it's good in that respect. I like the fact that we're not going to ride around under caution. We're not going to stack cautions back to back. And to what you like, yes, we go to Richmond this weekend. We're going to have 160 lap stage 2, 170 lap stage 3. Well, we might have 180 lap stage 3 because you could end up, stage 2 could stop 10 laps earlier. So I think I don't think it's going to be a big play to the crew chiefs, especially here. We may get to a fuel mileage racetrack that it may have a more significant heartburn for crew chiefs, but I like it.
So when we talk about Richmond, we talk about worn out asphalt and tire fall off, and that was a big conversation with the fans because Iowa announced that not only will it be back on the schedule next year, 4th of July weekend, but that, and ceremoniously right after the checkered flag, Ty Gibbs got to help them peel up their asphalt. They're going to the repave. Well, this is a loaded question, I guess, but let's start with why. Why do tracks repave? Help the fans understand why somebody like Iowa repaves.
Well, there comes a point when it's like the road you drive down, right? It creates potholes. It creates separation. The asphalt, the aggregate of the asphalt has kind of diminished to the point that it starts to chunk.
And we've seen it, right? We had concrete come up at Martinsville, and I'm going to show my age years ago. Concrete come up at Dover. We have seen asphalt come up at other tracks. I walked down the front stretch, and there's a gap in the front stretch that's over 1.5 inches wide and 4 inches deep that they've kind of sealed back in, that seam sealer you see, but it's coming apart. It's getting to that point, and the winters up here in Iowa, they're rough. So it's worth
you get that expansion and contraction breaks this up.
So now the question is, what should we expect? Let's remind everybody, the corners were repaved in 2024 in anticipation of the Cup cars coming because they didn't believe the asphalt was even going to make one race. So that was done. It's hard to tell because they were bleached. Like, they used to be really clear to find. Now it's kind of a bleached bit of asphalt.
Yeah.
But the repaved area to me is pretty wide for a repave. You run from the white line all the way up until the paving seam.
So the bottom 2 lanes, and then from basically turn 2 and turn 4, they did a 3rd lane up top, and that extended a good 100 yards past, and that's where you would exit, blending up towards the wall. I actually think that the patchwork made Iowa more of a single groove racetrack because the bottom had even if you could get below somebody, you tried to drive off the corner on old asphalt while the guy that was on the top still had that patch working forward. It made it harder to pass. I really think that this place is a repave. Will put on as good, if not a better show next year.
I mean, Bozi, it was other than the jump into one, which is huge. It's rough and bumpy into one. Tire fall off and pit strategy feels like a repave. Like, am I crazy to say that? Like, tires don't matter a whole lot. We're taking 2 tires. It's not like Richmond or other short tracks. It kind of already races that way.
It does. And I think here it all goes back to the nature of the car. And we saw that with the choices made at the end of the race of like 4 tires versus 2 tires and why track position is so important, with Christopher Bell having maybe a couple of stabs at Gibbs, but not being able to get past. So even with fresher tires, no matter how long the run was, it didn't really make a big difference. And that's why I agree with Todd that the cascading decisions that ended up with Stevens choosing those 4 tires at the end, I think were a mistake. And I think that, for what we're going to see here, my wish would be that maybe they do some experimental aggregate or something just to try something different and see what happens.
I will tell you that at North Wilkesboro, it's not all the same. So let's talk about another short track we've seen repave recently. That's pretty wide. I'm not going to claim I know the magical mix, but I will tell you that the asphalt in lane 1, 2, and 3, both asphalt and banking, has been altered as it moves up the racetrack. To your talk about the magical mix, that group knows what they're talking about. I just hope they all talk, right? Different groups own different racetracks.
Yeah, yeah. And keep in mind, this was a progressive bank racetrack to start with.
Yeah, 12 to 14.
12 to
right?
14. So there's an opportunity here with a couple degrees. That's why I think lane 2 is the preferred lane here. But if we get equal asphalt with that banking change, we may see more side-by-side racing if the exits are similar aggregates. So I think there's a lot that NASCAR can do here. I wouldn't write this off as we've lost a good racetrack. I think it's got an opportunity to be really good.
Well, another huge story leading into the race at Iowa that did affect the runnings of the 11 of Denny Hamlin and the 19 of Chase Briscoe some, but not as much as expected, was braking issues and really braking deficiencies when it comes to Gibbs. So there's a lot to unpack here. We're going to get into the braking systems in a minute. I think we almost have to start with the weekend as a whole. I'm not sure everyone completely understands. Not every weekend, but the majority of weekends are impounds. What does that mean? It means your car comes off the hauler, you prepare it for inspection, you roll through inspection, both safety and rules and regulations, weights, heights, bodies, all of these sort of things. That car, once it passes, it gets, a thumbprint, you're good to go. What that means is you as a race team no longer control your car. It is overseen by NASCAR. You do the work, but only approved work. You roll out to pit road, you practice off pit road. The adjustments to your car on pit road during practice are limited. It is a relatively lengthy sheet. You can adjust shocks and sway bars and a lot of other things, but it is limited. After practice at Iowa, Joe Gibbs Racing has a brake issue. They go to NASCAR and they want to change brake pads. They're told they can't. That's the start of the news. How did I do with the weekend? Is that how you see it?
Yeah, it's how I see it.
Because there's a lot to it.
Yeah, there is. And we talk about the practices, but it is. It's basically, adjustments on the shocks that are already installed in the car.
Okay.
It's heights as far as the rounds on the springs in 4 different corners and where the hour platform is. You're not going to change geometries. You're not going to swap parts. You're allowed to make adjustments. You're not allowed to change any parts other than tires once you're out through inspection and out. So as we come forward, 2 of the Joe Gibbs Racing cars had brake issues with pad concerns.
So now let's talk about the car in general. The next-gen car, Bozi, you do a ton of racing all around the world. This car is made up of 2 fundamental part descriptions. Single source parts, which are basically parts that are sourced by NASCAR. As a race team, you must order those parts, those part numbers. Certain have variation. You could do part A or part B, but you don't get to alter them. You have to run one of those. Non-single source parts, which means you can either make them or buy them from multiple manufacturers. An example of that would be most of the internal, they don't tell you what valve springs to run. There are a rule to the valve springs, but, Toyota goes and gets their valve springs wherever they want. Chevy probably gets their own. Let's talk now brakes specifically. I have on the board single source braking parts. First of all, single source, non-single source. You're on board with me there.
Yes.
I think it's relatively, I don't want to call it that simple, but I think for this discussion, that's simple. The braking system is made up of a majority of single source parts. We have the pedal box, this item in the middle. Every race team runs that pedal box.
They do. The master cylinders have options of bore diameter.
So you're talking, I'm going to zoom in.
The red
right
part's
here.
in there.
So you see the red part right here. That is, you have options,
There's
A, B,
options.
C, D, but you have to run that manufacturer and that.
They're coming from the same part supplier. And
Okay.
Bozi, we talked about this. Brake rotors are a single source supplier part, but there's a couple of options.
You can do light duty or heavy duty, and it's kind of an A and B type column. So for most of these single source parts, you might just have an A option, but some of them will have an A, B, or C. But you can't go outside of that. With things like the brake pads, that falls into team sourced parts. And what that means is they'll give you kind of a measurement of what it needs to fit into, but the actual compound part that touches the rotor, that's almost totally up to you.
So I think this is the intersection. This is where it comes from. The brake pad in NASCAR's view is like a shock, a spring, a sway bar. You choose what brake pads you put in your car to suit your driving style. That's why it isn't specified, because Todd, some drivers like different brake pads.
Yes.
We use brake pads to change the handling of the race car.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that go into brake pads. Joe Gibbs Racing brings a brake pad there for an advantage, as they should. I'm not knocking that. It doesn't work. They asked to make a change. NASCAR says no, because they believe that this is just like a shock or a spring. They did say that if that pad was deteriorating, failing, or breaking, they would absolutely let them change them Because of safety, it is a braking system.
But
and
same for same.
To the same
Yeah,
part.
same for
same
same.
for
And
same.
we've seen this with rotors.
Yep.
That when we
So
have
say-
a practice.
So let's set that. Same for same. This
Yes.
part's failing. We'll let you put a new version of it
So
in.
if I have I'm going to use an
Yeah.
old PFC 01.
Yeah, yeah.
If it's breaking apart and broken, I can put another PFC 01
Yeah.
pad back in that. The rotors are the same way. If we've seen a rotor that has a crack, for safety reasons, NASCAR will allow you to swap a rotor for a like rotor, the same
Yep.
option within the AP item. So that they will allow you to do. You aren't allowed to make changes from A to B or from X to Y.
Yep. So now one more layer of the story, and this is where I think opinions are fair. Rotors that are cracked, they will let you change them for safety, and you don't even lose your starting spot because they're like, hey, man, you have to run that rotor. I get it. Other components, like a steering rack, if it's failing, single source pot, they will let you change it, but you go to the back. The other third part is not a single source part. If you break an engine, you change it and you go to the back, but it is failed. That part is failed. I think that's really the three things, right? There are approved, no penalty, approved, but with a penalty, and not approved, but you still have to be greenlit to change it. You just don't get to change it on your own, right?
The rack and pinion that you're changing is failed, and you've shown that.
Yeah.
That it's failed. Likewise, they said if you had a brake pad that had failed,
Okay.
they would let you change that to the same spec part.
So now,
This
yes.
is a difference.
So now let's get to Sunday morning.
Yes.
Danny Hamlin, Joe Gibbs Racing are frustrated because they don't believe they're going to finish the race. Their opinion is that they have this braking issue. We had a long pedal. We're not going to be able to run. They ended up running 5th and 6th, so they adapted very well,
Imagine that.
right? So the question then becomes, should Gibbs have been allowed to change the brake pads?
I'd say no.
Okay.
I'd say no, but it's a slippery slope to go down. But if you get to the point that you allow people to change brake pads, and this is where the competitor in me comes forward and answers.
I know where you're going here.
Because you and I both know that if you tell me I can change pads, now I'm going to put a qualifying compound in to start my weekend, then I'm going to come back and put something else in.
Knowing I'm
Or-
going to be under penalty, I'm going to qualify well, get a good pit stall, or I might even bring a developmental car. I may bring a whole nother entry that's not a chartered car just to practice for parts.
Yes, and then likewise, we talked about compound splits, and Bozi kind of mentioned this a little bit. It is not uncommon to run a different compound in the left front than you do the right front for making the cars a little more tighter and secure on entry. That's I may be, as a crew chief, I'm going to start changing that and tuning that because I'm allowed to change those brake pads after I've had a practice run. So there's a slippery slope we can go down that the competitive guys will turn this into a lot more than what we see as the
So
outside
I've
of
had
it.
an overnight to sleep on it, and here is now where I stand. I feel that Iowa was managed correctly within the rule books.
Yep.
I also feel like we should adjust the rule book moving forward. I would be okay in situations that a team understands the penalty. The penalty could be very severe, but allow them to make changes. Here's my caveat. Brake pads. We think we're going to fail an engine. We can't show you a demonstrated issue, so you're not going to let me change it. I want to change it anyway. There's a partner in progressive on the hood of Denny Hamlin. There are fans that have come out to see Denny Hamlin run. Don't make NASCAR. I would be okay if they said, you can change the brake pads, but it's a 5-lap penalty or a 3-lap penalty, a severe penalty. And then make Joe Gibbs like, is it truly a safety concern? Do they really feel like they're going to fail? Do they really? And make the team who decided to put the pads in, make the decision to run, because in the end, it's for the race fan. And say it went great here.
So
And Denny Hamlin finished great. He finished great. He was out there all day.
Yes.
But what would we have done if we had run 5 laps, the brakes had overheated, and pulled in? That would have just felt like we had done a disservice to the fan who came to cheer on Denny Hamlin.
So I would say that there is that opportunity already, but it's a very extravagant penalty. Is that Denny Hamlin can roll out and at
Take
the
the
green
green,
flag
come in.
go to the garage and change
Okay.
brake pads.
All right.
Because once the race has started, that's out of the now we're out of that environment.
Yeah.
They could come to pit road, they could go to the garage. You're allowed to do that now. We can go to the garage and still come back because of changes in DVP and all that. But that could happen. But that's going to be a 15, 20 lap penalty.
It's complicated.
The
You
framework
racing
is
other
that-
series.
yeah.
How does it all make? Let's talk about the system as all. Like you run an IMSA and everything, impounds and parts, and does that bother you as a race fan, or you're like, hey, this is kind of how it is everywhere?
I think firstly, I agree with Todd that
The penalty is pull in the garage.
as a competitor, like if you tell me brake pads are open, the first thing that starts going through my mind is how can I help my car chief and my engineer set out a dozen brake pads, and how can we maximize our time to go faster?
I think that's important because I
think-
think the fans, as they should,
Yeah.
they think a brake pad stopped the car. We see everything on the car as an advantage.
But I think that's just the different mindset. If you're a competitor versus if you're just watching from the outside, every single piece on that car, if the rule book doesn't explicitly prevent us from touching it, we're going to touch it. And that's where you have to start. And I think that going to the big picture of things, I think NASCAR is moving in the right direction with this 50-minute practice and some of this other stuff. One of the things that really makes me excited when I compete in IMSA is that I have a lot of input on what happens with the car, because I competed with Todd here. We did a few races in 2023 with Jimmy Johnson, and it was everything that happened at the shop was 90% of it. Once you got to the track and it got impounded, the mechanic really is making maybe a small toe change here, a little like tweak there, move the ballast back and forth. But in IMSA, like we competed at Watkins Glen, ended up winning the race. But in the first practice session, a 90-minute practice session, we had 5 sets of shocks laid out with different spring combinations on them. And we practiced how to quickly change them to maximize our time. And whenever I go in the car and put a set of springs or shocks in it, I feel like I'm contributing to making this car be a little bit faster to get a little bit closer to that win.
So to help our fans at Motorsport who may not be following the NASCAR news as much, starting in New Hampshire in just a couple weeks, practice will be extended to 50 minutes with 2 sets of tires. Same process. You still practice off pit road, so the impound requirements are there. So Todd, it sounds to me, because I know where you stand on this, you're not as opposed to the concept of impound. You just feel like the 1-sheeter should become maybe a 2-sheeter. You'd like to see more options within limits. Like you don't want to give them the cars back, but hey, maybe a second set of shocks or another spring setup, things you could prepare.
I would like to see the crew chiefs and car chiefs have the options to have a bigger impact in that 50-minute practice. I think that's, you talk about it from the mechanic side, that they feel like they're car pushers at times. I'd like to see, we're stuck. If you're a single car team and you show up, the 4 springs that you picked at the shop are what you're stuck racing. Like how many times you just talked about it, you wanted to lay out all these changes. I'd like to see maybe X number, maybe it's 4 extra shocks that you can have inspected because it's a coilover shock that have spring options, that then the teams, it's a bolt-on part that you can do on pit road while it's up on one side jack. It'd be, I'd be all for seeing that box opened up a little bit.
So to put a bow on the whole situation, in practice and qualifying, Briscoe and Hamlin have brake issues. They request to make a pad change. The request is denied. They feel it's outside the rule book. Their option are to start the race, come in the garage, and change the pads by losing laps, or manage it with cooling and driving. Denny Hamlin goes to run 5th, Chase Briscoe 6th. Let's put the mechanics aside. You've managed a ton of races. How impressed were you with what Hamlin and Briscoe did? Because I think we can all agree it wasn't optimal. They're truly why. I don't want to make it sound like they had this make-believe problem. It was a demonstrated problem. It was real. They adapted and did a great job.
I actually wonder if Denny Hamlin, this was one of his worst racetracks. If you look at the 2 races we've run here, I think his average finish was in the 20s. Denny overcame. And I wonder if Denny actually learned some things about driving technique, about how he drove this racetrack to work forward. Just incredible. And the interview we did with Denny afterwards, he was exhausted. He was exhausted. And just what a great effort. The long run speed, late in the runs, his car had good pace.
Yeah.
A lot of that's because there wasn't a lot of brake usage, so he didn't have all that brake heat built into him. But I think I'm just impressed that they figured out how to make the best of the situation they had.
I think that's a pretty big deal, just to show like what he looked like when he came out of the car. And obviously you guys talked to him, to just understand how much effort that takes, because basically when you're in that situation, it's like driving towards a brick wall and not knowing that, hey, am I going to be able to stop before I hit this wall, or am I going straight into it? And at every single lap, after that lap 4 or 5 failure, he was dealing with that. And I agree with you, because a lot of people don't consider just the brake heat and the impact it has on the pressures and all this other stuff. So now they have this entire new notebook of things that they learned that they're going to bring back. And obviously they had a race winner out of that shop, but now every single car in that facility is going to be better.
Well, what we do know is that I believe this conversation about parts and pieces and what you're approved or not approved to change, it will come under scrutiny. Will it adjust? I don't know. But much like the entire rule book, we talk about this a lot, much like rules to have a more entertaining race. The rules are adjusted all the time by what the garage needs, right? As the sport adapts, the rules continue to change. Appreciate you coming in studio.
Thank you.
A lot to unpack. You picked a good one. You picked a day that
fun.
we decided to see not only a great race for the win, but problems up and down pit road. You contribute to motorsport.com. We see you on pit road at IMSA. You're a little bit of everywhere for the fan at home. If they want to complain about everything you said here today, where can they find you on social media?
They can find me on social media at Bozi Tatarevic on every platform. If you search for Bozi, you'll find me, and you'll find me doing pit stop on the number 14 Vassar Sullivan Lexus at VIR in a couple of weeks.
It's going to be a great time for sure. So Bozi, appreciate you joining us. Todd, I appreciate the help with all the rules. They can be a bit complicated, so it was good to have a little bit of assistance here in the studio.
Yeah, it's always trying to understand the new situations. We got a unique one brought at us this weekend.
Short track season in NASCAR continues from the 7/8 mile D-shaped track in Iowa to the 3/4 mile, almost a twin of Iowa. We head to Richmond Raceway. Really the third most track we have run in NASCAR. We've been running here forever. Back to Saturday night under the lights. Thoughts on Richmond? What should we expect? What should the fan expect Saturday night?
Comers and goers. This is different than what Iowa was, where Iowa was, kind of maintain pace. You will see a lot of drivers searching for grip. This place will be fast on lap 1. It will slow down multiple seconds through 50 laps. And you will have to move your way around the racetrack. A lot of kind of moving up to the second groove. There's a little bit of a banking change between the two there, trying to find a little better grip. And you'll see guys down this front stretch that don't even get close to the front stretch wall.
Austin Dillon 2 years ago went to victory lane, but then it got taken away because he ran over from the 22 and the 11. Then he came back last year and proved it wasn't a fluke, dominated again. I mean, I know there are, tracks for certain teams, but this is a standout track for Austin Dillon.
It is. And really that year before when he ran over those two, he was out to like a 3 or 4 second
It was
lead
his.
when
right?
the caution flew with 2 to go and set up a green-white checker. So he has really good understanding what it takes here. You'll watch this car. This will not be one up against the wall coming down the front straightaway. He'll find that grip lower and just drive off straight up the hill.
Who else do you have to keep your eye on?
Who else do I have to keep my eye on? I mean, Ryan Blaney is kind of led the Penske brigade, and Penske at short tracks has been good. You got Bubba Wallace up here. The runs that he had off the corner last week at Iowa, just phenomenal. Went up and drove by Ryan Blaney. I think he'll be good here. Denny Hamlin back in Virginia. I mean, there's so many you can go to. I'm curious to see when the Hendrick camp kind of finds their footing and gets themselves back in that direction.
Yeah, we still have a stacked-in points battle between Briscoe, Bell, Elliott, Hocevar, Buscher, really Larson. That's like 5th through 10th in the points. When you look at the other side of the points, right, we have Cindric and Priest, 29 points separate those two drivers. SVG still holding on, 47 above the cut line. Richmond Preview, purely through the prism of points. What do we think could potentially happen here?
I'm curious to see. We've now got a heck of a battle for second in the points as we work through with Ty Gibbs, Ryan Blaney, and Tyler Reddick with Tyler Reddick's wreck at Iowa. There's so much movement. And I feel like this group here from 5th on down, you look at that, 260, minus 260, all the way down to Kyle Larson, and it's 34 points from 5th to 10th. There's a lot of movement there, and that's points leading into the chase that every team wants to get. I look for who can maximize this short track stint, both here at Richmond and then on to New Hampshire.
Maximize. I also wonder, Priest so good at New Hampshire, but Chastain moved up 3 spots at Iowa. Can they find whatever was so good in that Trackhouse #1 there, Chevy, for Ross Chastain? Hopefully, or for the least, hopefully for them, it'll transition to
And the
Richmond.
interesting part to me on the Trackhouse piece is I felt like they've really lacked speed. But we saw both Ross Chastain and Connor Zilic qualify well. And Connor Zilic, you talked a little bit earlier, was kind of a day that nobody noticed, but he ran around 10th all day long. And that's that's a step forward for Trackhouse. Be interesting to see if Ross and Trackhouse can carry that forward. Likewise with Shane Van Gisbergen trying to hold on to the chase.
Well, you don't want to miss it. Saturday night, under the lights. Saturday night, set your clock. Don't look for racing on Sunday. On USA, 7 p.m., myself, Lee Diffie, Jeff Burton up in the booth. We'll have Marty Snyder and Dale Jarrett down on the USA pit box. On this week of Inside the Race Overtime, Alex Weaver sits down with part-time Craftsman Truck Series driver Toni Breidinger.
You mentioned your journey. I want to go all the way to the beginning because growing up, was racing always the goal for you? Were you a 3 and 4 year old being like, I want to be a race car driver?
So I actually had no idea about racing up until I was 9 years old. Like if you asked me when I was 8 anything about NASCAR, I don't even think I knew what NASCAR was. So I feel like compared to some other drivers introduced a little bit later in life, I feel like so many drivers start so young, like toddlers. But growing up in San Francisco, I mean, NASCAR is not the biggest thing. Like I think it's much bigger and something you grew up with if you're in like the Carolinas or the Southeast. So for me, I didn't grow up watching NASCAR. And my journey into the sport was kind of just by chance random. My dad asked me and my sister Annie if we wanted to go go-karting. And we said yes, but like had no idea what we were saying yes to, had no idea what I had signed myself up for. And I fell in love with it. And I was trying so many different hobbies and sports at that age. And nothing was really clicking. I was doing, karate, soccer, piano, gymnastics. And I liked those things, but wasn't super passionate about it. And racing was like, my eyes lit up when I did it. And my parents were like, oh my gosh, she likes something. So they were very supportive of the journey, but it was never, their intentions were never to make me be a race car driver. That was not really on the table.
Okay, so you go go-karting, and then what's the process? Because being a little girl from San Francisco, like you said, it's not as open, and it's not as like, oh, we're going to go down to the local dirt track and get her involved in this racing, or we're going to go like North Carolina is for a lot of these guys that come to North Carolina. But what was the process of going from San Francisco at a go-kart just for fun to now where you are in your career?
Yeah, so basically we would just go up on the weekends, run a bunch of laps. Then we started racing locally at Sonoma Raceway, and then dabbled a little bit in going to Southern California, a couple races over there. And then I remember we went to our first national race in Oklahoma, which is like a really big deal. Our first national race, we did this whole road trip there. And then started doing more national events and races. And I feel like that kind of broadened our horizons. And then once you're in motorsports, you start making connections with different people. And then my next step after that was running at Madera Speedway in the Ford Focus Midgets. So I did that for a little while, and then I saw my first late model race, and then 14, 15 is when I was like, I want to be a NASCAR driver, and that's kind of when I set my eyes on that.
TB, I appreciate the time. I know you have such a busy schedule. We wish you all the luck in the races this season. I'm so proud of you. So you go kick butt, okay?